This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And I am so excited because we've got a returning guest and we are kickstarting a podcast recording day from the other side of the world, which is always really exciting because it means we'll get loads of new listeners down in Australia. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome back today Simi Rayat, who is a dear friend of mine, and she is the founder of SimiRayat.com. She's a business psychologist, leadership consultancy, keynote speaker, executive coach, and author. Welcome back to you today, Simi. How are you?
Oh, amazing, Leisha. And thank you so much for having me. It's always so good to see you and to be here together today.
It really is. So you're over in Melbourne. You moved to Melbourne in 2021, which is
Yes.
very exciting. And we do have a really nice community of listeners over there. So if you are listening in Australia, make sure you comment in the comments below. Now, there'll be plenty of people who are not yet familiar with you, which I can't believe, but give us an explanation as to what you actually do and who you are.
Oh, Alicia, so I've been working as a business psychologist for 20 years now. I work with leaders globally to help them become a joy to work for and do business with. And a big part of my work is working with senior leadership teams to really help them build an inclusive culture, but also working one-on-one with individual leaders to help them really get to know themselves, become self-aware, so that they can be the best versions of themselves to lead their teams.
Oh my God, I absolutely love that explanation, which is why I always ask my guests to do it themselves. The fact that you create joy in the people that are trusting you, that's just, for me, sums up what a good coach does. And for me, that's what this podcast is about. You've listened to this today, you've chosen to click on this link because you're clearly interested in developing yourself and the topic that we're sharing today, the hook, whatever hook headline we've decided to pick out from today's discussion. But I love that that's what you're about. So a large part of our community are leaders. They're leaders that, you know, they're taking a pause in their day, however they're managing to fit this in, to say, right, I want to do something for themselves. But I think one of the biggest challenges facing leaders is, certainly in the recruitment industry, how to not only attract, but also retain their best talent. So what do you think leaders need to do to kind of wake up to the challenges that they're facing to attract and retain their best talent?
Yeah, I love how you phrase that, Leisha, in terms of what do leaders need to do to wake up to attract and retain the right talent. I think a big thing here is helping leaders really know who they are and how they can get the best out of their team. Because the leaders that are a joy to work with and do business with, people in their team will drop everything and move mountains for them. And that's how you get high levels of engagement, loyalty, and people going above and beyond to help you succeed because they like you as a leader. So how do we make, your team feel that, you're a joy to work with and for? I think it's really about helping leaders know how to make their team feel seen, heard, recognized, and that they matter. Because human beings, we've all got this inner drive within us, Leisha, that we want to feel as though we matter. We want to feel this personal significance. And when we feel that other people recognize that, it unlocks this internal joy within us that we want to do even more. And that's what I think it's about, helping leaders really wake up to that idea and ask themselves, am I really a joy to work for and be around? Do my team want to hang around me and do the best to deliver for me?
Which, if I think about, as we contextualize when we're recording this, which is just as we hit the first half, the end of the first half of 2024, it's been a really challenging market for most leaders. Well, it has been for years, really, but this year in particular, as a recruitment business leader, we know it's been a very daunting, unpredictable, erratic market. And I think unless you are self-aware, you used that expression before, you might have actually unintentionally been showing vulnerability, maybe been showing stress, anxiety as a business leader, where there's been lots of mitigating things outside of your control as a leader. You know, there's been world wars, there's been cost of living crisis, there's been economic turmoil. And if you're not aware of that, of your behavior, of how that's then impacting, it could be creating worry, stress, anxiety for no reason, because you're not. And I always think it's down to communication. So, I mean, if I think about a leader listening now that's got 2 or 3 people like me, it's quite easy, in inverted commas, to measure my behavior because I can physically see from each person. But if I'm a leader listening now and I've got, 13, 14, 15 direct reports, and then they've each got 15, 20 direct, how do leaders who've got a scalable operation become more aware of how they're reacting and how their behavior is impacting?
Yeah,
to know whether they're a joy. To know whether they're a joy. That's what I'm trying to ascertain. How do you know?
How do you know? What a great question. I think the key here is to keep asking yourself that question and looking at how your team are responding to you. How are they engaging? Do they come and share ideas with you? Do they tell you when something's gone wrong that they've done? Do they express their concerns, their worries? Do they come and ask you for guidance, advice, feedback? So I think those are key things. The other thing is, as a leader and a manager, your time is really stretched. It's tight. Now, very often what happens is the first thing we drop those one-on-one meetings with our teams, and we bump them. Now, I would say if there's one thing that you keep doing is making sure that you meet with your team, either individually or in small groups, but regularly. Okay. The communication and that contact is so, so important. It's like, if you think about it, it's like our children. We think that our children are just going to come and talk to us whenever we ask them. We've got a specific time. We want to know what's going on for them. They must tell us there and then. If you think about it, our team is like that too. It doesn't happen in those precise moments. They will come and talk to you when they need you or when they know they've got some time with you. But I think making sure that you are available and that you honor those one-on-ones as much as possible. Whether your team bump it or not, that's up to them. But as a leader, I think it's so important to prioritize and signal that you are there and that you've created this time for the team.
There's 2 things that I'm taking from this. One is that it's a culture of trust. Do as you say you're going to do. And that's in any relationship. You create, if I say I'm going to be available at 11 o'clock to have that catch-up call with you, I will be available, whatever that looks like. And the other thing, which it gets talked about a lot, this expression, but it's creating an environment where people feel psychologically safe to be able to come to you and say, I have fucked up, I don't know what to do actually. And know that the repercussion is not going to be punitive. It's actually going to be, wow, let's sort this out. Let's problem solve this together. And I think that very often, because we're seen as a meritocracy in recruitment, particularly, and leaders are seen as kind of steering this ship of success and high performance, and actually do we actually own our fuck ups? And do we then take that as leaders and go, right, you really screwed up here, you lost a big fee or you lost a big client, but you need to be able to create that communication where that person goes, I need you to help me now as a leader and not sack me, basically. And
I agree. I really agree with you. And I think the key thing here is, as a team member, you need to feel that your leader has your back. That's really key, because once you know that your leader's got your back and your leader is trusting you, even if you do mess up, even if the shit hits the fan, you can still go to your leader and you go to your manager and say, I've done this and I need your help. What do we do with it together? Yeah.
So in order for somebody to understand whether that's going to be safely received, do leaders need to then share their fuck ups? What I'm saying is, do they need to show when we've made the wrong decision? Maybe it's the wrong hire. Maybe it's, we shouldn't have gone into that market. Maybe it's we shouldn't have moved into these big offices, whatever, maybe we shouldn't have mandated back in the office full time. That's a whole different conversation. But actually, for a leader to communicate that and demonstrate that without actually having to say, you're all safe, is by showing that and owning their own mistakes, I suppose.
Massively. And I think this is the key, because, people are watching behaviors all the time, where our, bodies and mind are observing what's happening around us. I say that we all have a BS meter. We can really suss out when someone is pulling the wool over our eyes, not being authentic, being really disingenuous. We sniff it out. So even as a leader, if you are being open and being vulnerable to share when something hasn't gone quite right, but sharing with the team, well, what the learnings are, it actually makes you more relatable. When you're relatable, people will listen to you. They will want to hear what you have to say, and also they'll want to support you.
You mentioned their parenting, and I know a lot of our listeners aren't parents, but you have at some point been parented, or you've had a guardian, even if you've not been brought up in a traditional family. And I know as a parent that the key defining moment in my relationship with my teenage daughters was during lockdown, where I shared my vulnerability, both as a human, like the massive mistakes I've made in my life and marriages and that kind of thing, but also just, some of the decisions that I've made, how scared I was, it totally transformed how they see me. And it created this equitability within our home, where they know they can literally come to me with anything, and not just them, but their friends too. Like, I seem to be this magnet for, which is amazing. So when I think about, and I'm not saying I'm the icon here, but I'm just saying in terms of creating psychological safety, I want any listener listening now, and I always say it's that one person that takes something from this. Don't be afraid to do that, because actually we're all human, we're all infallible, and it's actually the greatest successes come from saying, well, I did this, I shouldn't have done it, but I did, and this is therefore what I will do in the future.
Absolutely. And the aim is not for perfection. The aim is for progress. So
I love that. I love that.
If we're learning and we're helping those around us to learn through our successes, through our failures, we are all progressing. And I think the more that we can take that mindset and behave in that way with our team, it all plays into that perception of, I've got a leader who's got my back. I've got a leader who's actually a joy to work with and for, because they get me, they understand me. And that's why I think those one-on-one are really, really important, Leisha, because you've got to get to know your team members.
You do,
get to know who are their loved ones, what's their name, of their key people in their life, what are the sports or hobbies that they have an interest, how else do they like to spend their time. All of that builds the personal connection. And as you know,
it's a holistic approach, isn't it, to getting to know. You're not just dimensionalizing this is who they are in work, this is like the whole. So is that are we segueing nicely into what servant leadership is? Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the point here really is to think about that people do business with people.
Okay.
We, before we buy a product, before we buy into a service, it doesn't matter how great that service or that product is. If the person that's selling that to you there's no connection, or you're getting a funny, weird vibe, you're going to be reluctant. You're going to be reluctant to purchase and get involved or use that service. And this is where that personal connection is so important with your team, but also with customers. And when we talk about servant leadership, I think we've got to really think about, as a leader, it's not always about paving the way and curating the vision and inspiring and taking everybody along with you. It's about really identifying what the strengths are of your individual team players. What are their superpowers? And then when situations arise, allow those superpowers to be mobilized. Say, okay, Leisha, you are amazing at really communicating that message. I would love for you to take this opportunity and present the next business case. So tapping into your team superpowers is hugely important. That's what servant leadership really is.
I absolutely love that. And then if there are recruiters listening going, right, well, how can I then apply that to my client? Because I think it's really important that you picked up on that we do buy from people. So we could do that with our client, really. We could get, and the candidates as well, focusing in on that. So we could really microcosm it, that sort of whole ethos of servant leadership.
Absolutely. And I think the more that we do that, we start to have a ripple effect on all of our interactions that we have with each and every person. We get to know them, they get to know us, and we can work more deeply, closely together. That's how we build trust through those micro moments of interaction.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think anyone listening, wherever you are in your evolution of your career, we can all learn something from it. And that the whole golden thread of this conversation right now for me is trust. It's about building trust. And, you know, you don't have to be an expert in recruitment or whatever career you're in. If you're listening from another walk of life, we build trust in relationships. That's what we do. And they're the people that you go to, they're the people that you return to. And that's what it's all about creating. So a large part of our listeners are leaders, as I've said to you. And, you know, I mentioned earlier on that we've gone through a really difficult transition in 2024. And as we, you know, probably listening to this now, back end of the summer, hopefully there's some kind of light at the end of the tunnel, that the markets seem to be improving. They certainly seem to be in the UK, that's for sure. I don't know what it's like in Australia. I think you're a little bit behind, usually about a quarter behind from what I see from Greg Savage.
We are at the moment. Yeah,
you are. So and we tend to be about 2 quarters behind America. So it tends to have the ripple effect across the globe, which is always very interesting. I've seen it a few times now, that pattern. I hope it's going to continue to go up. But there'll be a lot of people possibly not recognizing that they've actually got the first signs of burnout, and whether they're a leader or whether they're a recruiter listening, what can we do as leaders ourselves, or those that maybe need to go to their leadership team to say, I think I might need some support? What would you say the first signs of burnout might be?
Yeah, look, you know, there's whopping, saddening research statistics out there at the moment, Leisha, that 81% of professionals are experiencing levels of stress and burnout currently.
Wow.
Now, when we're stressed and we're burnt out and we're feeling overwhelmed, you know, as you said, you know, the economy and all of the other challenges that we've experienced of late, it's really taken a toll on people, on people's mental well-being, their levels of productivity. Now, when we're in this state, our productivity declines. Now, the productivity, when it declines, the research is showing that it's actually costing employers $1.8 billion when we're not productive as employees. But even more than that, Leisha, it robs our happiness.
I know. And joy. And you keep using the word joy, which for me, happiness tends to be, I think it fluctuates, but joy is like a feeling.
Yes.
That
it robs
we're robbing ourselves.
And you know, and I think we've got one life, and it saddens me. You know, I found myself, Leisha, 4 years ago in a stage of my life where I felt very overwhelmed, stressed, and I was pretty burnt out, like 81% of the population. And I found a way, because I thought, well, actually, I'm a psychologist. I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm not actually taking my own medicine. So over the last 4 years, I've gone and developed a formula. And the formula helps busy people like you and I be effective and feel energized in just 5 minutes a day.
Wow.
It's you know, something that I'm actually really proud of the formula, Leisha, because it's been trialed and tested on 100 of my clients.
Amazing.
The formula is backed by psychological science, And what it involves is it involves asking yourself 5 key questions at the start of your day.
Okay.
And when clients have asked themselves the questions and gone through the formula, they've reported that they felt so much more intentional, so much more able to be responsive to their situation, their surroundings, and they've been a lot more productive. And
Wow.
even more, they feel they're a joy to be around because they feel joyful within themselves.
Mm.
So this formula is being shared now with my partnership with Wiley, and we're publishing a book called Productivity Joy, which will be released internationally in September.
Wow,
And
that's exciting. September
so
2024.
exciting.
That
Yeah,
might coincide with when this is going live around then. This is very exciting.
that would be amazing. So the book will be launched then. We'll have pre-orders going live in July, and I would love to offer your listeners a special code to get hold of the book
Wow.
so they can start applying the formula, because the formula really helps you move from surviving to thriving.
Thriving. Love it, absolutely love it. Well, we'll make sure when you're listening to this now, if you go to the notes in whichever podcast channel you've listened to this on and on YouTube, there will be a unique discount code which will say you've been listening to the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And as a thank you, Simi will be putting in there a little discount to basically get you to joy, which, I feel like we've gone full circle in this podcast because we started off with saying that's what you're here to achieve. And you've actually allowed our listeners to say, this is how I'm going to allow you to achieve joy. And I think that statistic makes me go goosebumpy all over for the wrong reasons. It's just horrific that we've created this world where 81, so most of the working population feel signs of burnout and stress, that we're meant to be creating a world with AI that's giving us more of our joy back. And it seems like we're going in the wrong direction. So if there's anything we can do, which is clearly your strategy, your formula, I'm definitely going to be dropping that into my bookshelf, that's for sure. And so if you're a leader listening, that you should be investing in that, but actually these are things that presumably we can then cascade down to our team members as well.
Absolutely. I think the first step is being able to really take personal responsibility for your own emotional well-being, how you show
Definitely.
up. What the formula does is it primes and activates your brain to help you think more clearly, connect with your emotions, prioritize, and decide how you're going to show up for your day. So these 5 critical decisions that you make at the start of your day, it's like, Leisha, allowing yourself to put your brain into first gear so that you can drive your day in the best way possible. And at the end of the day, you not only have accomplished what you needed to accomplish in terms of what matters to you, but you also feel really good. Like you feel energized, fulfilled, and you can look back and think, oh, that was actually a good day. I feel like I've done what I needed to do, but I actually also feel energized.
Which for so many people listening, particularly leaders, which I know this conversation has been centered around, we have so many things that we have to be reactive to during the day, whether that's literally within our internal customers, but also our external customers. So I think if what you're creating there is a almost like a funnel of, this is my accountability to myself. So whatever happens during the course of the day, when I get to the end of the day, I am going to feel accomplished. I'm going to feel joy. I'm going to feel content, regardless of what else is going on. And this makes me feel like, the controlling the controllables, right?
Correct. Absolutely. And then that has a ripple effect on every other person that we interact with, whether at work, whether at home. And, in terms of a leader, I don't think you need to have a leadership title or a role and status to be a leader. You're a leader if you recognize that you have a ripple effect. You have an actual impact on those around you.
Yeah, and like you say, there are so many people in recruitment that have become very successful, and maybe they've decided not to go down the people management route, but they're still regarded as a senior figurehead in a business. And this, presumably, the formula is applicable to anybody. Because and actually, one of the things that when I was thinking what an amazing impact that would have on your home life, actually. Because so many people, we actually, unfortunately, when we're experiencing stress and anxiety, we tend to actually not take it necessarily out on our work colleagues, but it tends to be on our personal family, friends, partner, which we don't intend to do, but it's just, so I think what I like is that this is going to create, I'm hoping, a more joyful, calmer leadership, but also a human experience, that we can bring that 81% right down and just give people some joy back.
Absolutely. I remember, Leisha, and this was my kind of pivotal moment or awakening for me. It was a Friday evening after a really long, busy week at work. I go home, open the front door, and I hear all this laughter from the lounge. And I stroll in, and my husband and my kids looked up at me and they said, "Here comes the bull." I was just shocked.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. Yeah, I'm sorry for laughing.
Oh, I was mortified.
Oh, no.
The bull. And you know why it was so painful to hear that? Because although they said it in such jest and they were joking, there was some truth in that, Leisha. I had actually become not a joy to be around. I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, I was charging around, I was not taking responsibility for my impact on others.
Wow.
And that's when I knew I really needed to take my own medicine. But I also needed to make a transformation, and that's what led me to develop the formula.
No, I love that you shared that. I'm sorry for laughing, because my that was a human reaction. I went from laughter to shock. And if anyone was watching that on YouTube, you'd have seen my emotion. My face kind of does always say, "Oh, like I haven't got a poker face." I'm sorry for laughing, but maybe because I recognise some of me in there, and if ever I look back on myself where I've had pivotal moments where I've taken some time to take stock, it's maybe I have been a bit more bullish than I should have been. With, like you say, the people that I shouldn't be bullish with, they're not the ones that I'm necessarily feeling it with. But thank God you did it, because like you say, you invested in yourself, you've used all your prowess and your expertise as a business psychologist, and you're now sharing that with other people. And the fact that you're allowing us to share the discount code is brilliant. I would, for one, definitely. And if you are listening to this in the UK, I believe, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but you might be coming to the UK to actually launch the book. So we'll make sure that we share that on our channels as well for that case. But you are so joyful. You are, I mean, that is the word, that's the word of the day. You are just so joyful, and you're just so easy to talk to. And I think for anyone listening now as a leader, if you want to connect to Simi and have a conversation about how Simi can support you as an executive coach, as a consultant, that would be something that you'd be more than happy to have a conversation with, I'm sure. And thank you so much for sharing your experience with us, Simi. You've been joyful.
Oh, Leisha, thank you for having me. It's always so wonderful to talk with you, and I'm so glad we can still do this, even being on other sides of the world. It's amazing.
It's amazing, thanks to technology. But thank you so much for joining us once again on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast.
Thank you.